Hi everyone, we're back in the gold chair, and I was thinking about something recently that I thought maybe I'd share, and I've shared it a little bit in other videos, probably most of which you haven't seen, and that's okay. I'm a sucker for repeating myself. In one of my earlier videos a few years ago, I was very enthusiastic about Ironsorn, extremely enthusiastic about Ironsorn and what Sean Tompkin and Matt Click had done in this absolutely wonderful interpretation of the Powered by the Apocalypse system, and really geared it towards solo play. And I believe that the title was about a game for introverts. And it's one of my most popular videos, and I'm still proud of it given that I was learning and it was very wonky, but I believe enthusiasm counts for a lot. And so I've been thinking about um, the nature of being introverted and playing games solo, and the challenges of playing solo games. So um, I'm better now than I used to be, but I have in my life been agoraphobic, so fear of going outside. Um, I think you might want to call it a fear of meeting new people, which I know should explode your brains for those of you who know me well enough to know that I am a priest in real life, and part of my job is meeting new people very often, and especially at kind of weddings and funerals and stuff. And I still have a fair bit of anxiety that I don't really talk about with my parishioners. But those who are very close to me know that I get extremely stressed out when it's something that's unfamiliar. Maybe this resonates with you. You know, the world isn't divided into two types of people. There aren't just extroverts and there aren't just introverts. So I'm not stupid enough to think that we're also divided into 16 categories in the Jungian or Myers-Briggs method. Yeah, it's fairly useful, but not always bang on. It's like systems theory that I do with marriage counseling. Systems theory can only go so far. So usually what I do is I ask an individual or, well, in a couple, I say, you know, who drives you crazy, your mother or your father? And usually the answer is indicative of the person that they are. I tease it out and I discuss a little bit more, and quickly you discover, more often than not, that the individual in a relationship is similar to one of their parents, grandparents, somebody who raised them, and that the person that they're closest to, or the person that drives them the craziest, are the ones that they kind of have been imprinted upon. And then the person that's sitting next to them with me, their partner, or their potential husband or wife, is usually the opposite person. So in my relationship, I've been married, I guess, 32 years this year. 33? 32? I'll do the math. 32. 33. 33. So my wife's not around. I married my father. I'm my mother. I take after my mother. I kind of look like my mother. And I take after the majority of her traits. I certainly have my father's traits, but I take after my mother. And my wife is extremely similar to my father. This is scary on a number of levels. But it doesn't always work out that way. So, how you apply a system doesn't always work out. It can help in a discussion, in a therapeutic fashion, but you got to make sure that it resonates with the other person. So these things that I'm about to say may or may not resonate with you, and they're about specifically role-playing and your involvement with role-playing and maybe the anxieties that role-playing cause you. You want to play. You love the game. You love the systems. You crave different systems. If you're watching me, I am sure that you're watching me not because of a particular system, but that you're a lover of the entire genre, just like I am. I've loved role-playing games since Chainmail. And so I didn't just stop at getting AD&D. I was there for MERPs, and I was there for GURPS, and I was there for Shadowrun, and all sorts. I wanted Everway, the box with the tarot-y cards in them. And it was just wonderful. It was a great time to kind of just consume different systems. And now we're just flooded with systems and trying to make our way around. But at the same time, we may be filled with anxiety. Whether you're playing 5e, whether you're getting geared up for 5.5, whether you're playing old school revival stuff and are invested in wanting to play Troika or wanting to play One Ring or excited about Blade Runner that's about to, that's going to be coming out relatively soon, I guess. You may find that your social anxiety, whether it's agoraphobia, whether you're a hardcore introvert, I'm very close to being a hardcore introvert. And if we're using kind of the definitions roughly that are out there, is an extrovert gets charged up by being with people. If an extrovert is alone, that drives them nuts, and it's difficult for them to be alone. They drain out by being alone. Whereas an introvert would become refreshed by being alone, and that being out in the public or being even at work with familiar people can be exhausting. And so, depending on your level of introvertedness or extrovertedness, may mean that if you're highly extroverted, you've got to constantly be going in order to feel fulfilled as an individual. An introvert may find that they need the majority of time to themselves, because for every hour maybe that they spend with a lot of people or different people might mean that they need an hour, 2, 3 to recover from that hour of being with people. Now this has a challenge for the role player, because the person who wants to play, whether it's online or not, still crosses the barriers of some people's comfort level. And I know that it affects mine. So how do we play? Well, there's solo options. And there's lots of solo options. And Google, go to Reddit. And I think that probably Ironsworn, Starforged, Free League's Forbidden Lands, and the One Ring are absolutely excellent solo games that you can play and that you could possibly find fulfilling and exciting, especially if you're creative. Now, if you're not creative, yeah, there's certainly tables that can help you, action theme type tables that will try to spur your imagination. I also highly recommend, and I think I moved it back to my library, but the Solo Game Master's Guide by Geek Gamers, YouTube personality, Hands, and she is wonderful, and she's written an absolute excellent book. So if you're interested in playing, that's great. But what happens if you find that horrible? You want to play, you want to be with people, but you find it very difficult to kickstart yourself into being with people. And I've generally been speaking about different types of kind of psychological issues recently, and gameplay, and talked about control and agency in terms of the individual, not the character. Today I'm kind of talking about you as a person who may find it even difficult to play solo because you find that it's just not fulfilling. You want to play with other people, and you do find that a challenge. Or you may just not have the time. What do? You love role playing games. You kind of want to play, but you're kind of shy to play. And nobody can say that you're wrong in having that deep desire to play the game, knowing that it's a social game, knowing that it's played with different people around a table, whether friends or whether, or whether at a game store, or whether some friend has invited their friends. You might find that you're extremely anxious about this. And in our world, what I'm finding is young people, particularly those who are younger than, say, 35, have become increasingly challenged by social interaction because of the unknowables and a number of other factors which are varied, and we can't get into them now. People may say that you're socially afraid, or you're socially inept, or that you haven't learnt the skills. That's baloney. We're just learning about our psychology in the modern world and the ramifications of easy access through Facebook and Twitter and all sorts. And even those who are kind of online may be much shyer and much more introverted in a almost crippling way than we believe. And with the pressures of being an open book in society and not having a lot of privacy, can be scary, and legitimately so. And for those of us who, or you, who may not find that a challenge, that's okay. Just understand that there are people who are out there who are serious, serious introverts, and when they do come around the table, they may be really pushing their bounds. So, you don't want to go out. You have thought about doing a pickup group with maybe you looking for group in one of your Discord channels, but you're still afraid, or you still find there's a block there. Maybe you're afraid that you're not going to get all the rules right, and you're petrified of being made fun of. And maybe that ultimately is what you may worry about is, am I going to be challenged? Is this going to be a fun experience if I want to play but I don't know everything and I'm called out and made fun of? A lot of us, even us in our 50s, have, and in my experience as a pastor, people in their 80s and 90s, don't think your grandparents have it together, and don't think that they're grumpy just because they're getting old, though they're grumpy because they're getting old and they know they're near the end of their lives. And so good on them for being grumpy. But they also witnessed bullying and being treated like crap. And, you might think that this is kind of the exclusivity of those who are visually different, or are markedly different from, say, the general majority of people. So, say, the LGBTQ community, maybe you dress in a way that is different from your peers. Maybe your voice is different from your peers. maybe the community in which you've been raised, you are a minority visually amongst those who are around you, and you've experienced bullying and um, and being made fun of. And no matter what the degree, it's how you've received it and how that's impacted you. The other factor is how we've grown up, and whether or not our parents, grandparents, custodians, whoever has raised us, between those ages of 0 and around 7 or 8, they have made a major impact in your life. And again, theories are not always accurate, but for the most part, that imprinting has made a major influence on the way you see other people as either allies or threats. And if you've grown up in a different and difficult situation, surrounded by abuses of all sorts of kinds, being comfortable in a role-playing situation may be extremely hard because you don't know what to expect, and that fear grips you, regardless of whether you're an introvert or an extrovert. So you're stuck, and you want to play, but solo just seems so damn boring to you. And you've played video games, or maybe you've grown up playing video games, and it's just not as satisfying. And you want to do something pen and paper wise. So maybe you're fed up with technology. I'm sure that some people out there are starting to realize that technology is great, and that the visuals we just got a PS5 in our house yesterday, to be absolutely honest, that one of my adult children bought. The first actual, I think it's the first actual new system since the PS3, to be honest. And so we've got this brand new thing. Well, some people are bored with that. And it's all starting to seem very samey. And even though the graphics are amazing, and maybe you've got a computer at home that can run you've got $1,000 GPU, but maybe you're starting to find that that's tiresome and it's not fulfilling what you want. You love tabletop role playing. Well, my advice is, don't be shy to just start to get a character sheet and a bunch of dice, pencil and eraser, and just start creating characters. I know that this is ridiculously stupid and simple, but why not? Maybe you're going to make these characters for something in the future. Maybe you're just doing it to kind of learn the game. Maybe you're doing it simply because you love the game, but you can't at this time in your life. Okay? At this time in your life, you can't get beyond that. Right? You're not ready to go with the groups. You're not ready to kind of sink your teeth into playing solo, but you really love the role-playing games. There is nothing wrong with just rolling up characters upon characters of different systems and just using your imagination in that way. It's actually a really good way to learn the system, and it is satisfying. Because as you create the character, your imagination is going to be spurred to think about, okay, what's this character like? Don't get the mindset of the min-maxer. Maybe just get dice and start rolling up rando characters, just like rando tarot cards. Just throw things out and see where they lie. Maybe that will help you kind of fill that and, that satiate you with filling you up with what you need for that moment. It might get you just enough of a RPG kick that it keeps you interested. And maybe you love to buy a ton of role-playing games, but you've got most of them sitting on your shelf and you haven't played half of them, or maybe the majority of them. Start rolling up characters. Start just going to the character creation system and start just work from there. and then figure out the rules if you so desire, and just try it. I know that this has been repetitive and it's not, rocket science, and I'm sure that other YouTubers have probably said this in different ways before, but think about the psychology behind it. There's a reason behind why we stall with role-playing games, and also at the same time why we want to be creative. And I think that's the key. I think that a lot of people who love RPGs, tabletop RPGs in particular, want to go beyond the limitations that we find in the structures within computer RPGs or JRPGs or whatever you want to call them. You can play an open world system like Red Dead Redemption 2 and have a great time, but you know that it's limited, and very soon you'll figure out key ways of getting around things, kind of like min-maxing within tabletop role-playing. But I would imagine that you just simply want to go beyond and think beyond and use your imagination. And so go for it. Don't be shy to say, I'm bored with solo and I don't want to play solo because I find that tedious or pointless. Just roll up characters. You might find that it scratches that itch. So that's about it. I continue to think about myself and my own personal psychology in the game and playing, and some of the great times that I've had playing with other people, some of the terrible times that I've had playing with other people, why it's made me feel the way that I do. And I'm constantly kind of thinking about myself in terms of those type of parameters that we look at, like emotional intelligence and introverted, extroverted, and Myers-Briggs, and even things like I Ching and Tarot. They're amazing tools to spur us to introspection. And I think learning about ourselves by looking at our families and looking at the dynamics and looking at our ways that we grew up will indicate to us a lot of how we approach role-playing games and how we approach others around the table and around the screens if you're playing online. So anyway, take care, have a great day, and do something today. Do something RPG-like today. Roll up a character. Set yourself a goal. Roll up a character today. See how it goes. And you might find yourself actually really happy with what you've done. So take care, and again, have a really good day. Bye. Hey, come on, puppy. Come on.